Arezo, who is currently residing in Berlin, but she's originally from Iran. Hi, Arezo.
Hi.
Tell us about your background. Why did you come here? Where were you born? And yeah, all those questions.
Sure. Glad to be here, first of all. I'm Arezo. I'm coming from Tehran, Iran, born and raised there. I am a computer engineer. I've studied mathematics in high school, then computer science, and then artificial intelligence in my master's. Then I started working as a computer programmer, software developer. By then, I was, I think, 28 years old, and at that point, the economy of Iran was collapsing, was starting to collapse really badly. And then I decided to move out of Iran for working. Berlin was a very good option because there are so many opportunities here, and it's also still close to home, so that I could visit my parents and my sister that are living there still. Compared to America or Australia or other countries.
Yeah, I was about to ask, compared to US, it's like, it seems to be easier to get here, but Iranians, can they easily go to US or not really?
Depends. Many of my friends from school and university are living in America, and they left Iran to get a PhD position, mostly in United States, or a master degree there. So it's really easy for people who have really high education to find a PhD position in the United States, Canada, or other parts of the world. So yes, it is possible, but I wouldn't say it is easy.
So, what is it life in Iran for a female? How is it?
Well, I think it's very hard to begin with. To be a female is very hard from the beginning, like from childhood. Women or children, like girls, are being treated differently than boys, depending on the family. But the majority of the families in Iran are traditional and kind of religious, and the culture after the first revolution, like the Islamic Revolution, has changed dramatically to suppress girls and female, not allowing them to go into the society, not allowing them to do the things that boys do in a natural lifestyle, like, I don't know, dance, play, swim, ride a bike. And from 7 years old, they force children when they go to school to wear this hijab.
I was about to ask you, like, did you have to wear a hijab when you were a little girl?
Yes, everyone does, and
really, since 7, like,
even sometimes even younger.
Wow.
Yeah, depends on the situation, but yeah, every child has to wear a hijab, and it's very hard and difficult for children to start with wearing this heavy thing on their head, so they look very awful with it and they are annoyed by it. I still see some children sorry, that are annoyed with this. They fight their parents to say, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to wear this, why do I have to wear this? They don't even understand the reason. They are children, like they're very small. And yeah.
So basically when you start school, you have to start wearing hijab. You don't have to
Yes.
do that in kindergarten, you have to do that only when you start.
Yes, officially it starts when you enter the society, and that starts with the school. There are preschool stages as well, but children are not forced to go to those. And I think they're not forced to wear hijab there as well, but I'm not really sure. It depends on which kindergarten or which preschool place they go. But yeah, it starts from the beginning. And then you get older and older, and all of this oppression and suppression grows bigger and bigger. But because you are living this life, you are through this, and you're a child, you don't understand what is happening to you. You just accept it, you just say, okay, this is how it is, this is our life, and you don't know what is going on around the world. You don't know that this is an ideology that is forcing you to live like this. You just accept it because you're a child and you listen to whatever the grown-ups tell you.
But further, growing up, were you exposed to some Western media or something like that? Did you have a chance to see that life can be different?
Definitely, yes. With my generation, already we started to have computers, smartphones, I don't know, satellite dishes that we could see other TV channels from around the world. And that really changed the society. That changed at least the perception of how a person could live, how life could be, and that it's not only the way that we live life. There are so many other different people living life much freer and different than us.
But in the beginning, it was not controlled, I can imagine. Later, they started like, oh, those people are exposed to those things we don't want them to see. And
Exactly.
how about now? Like, what about mainstream social media, like Facebook, all of that, Instagram? Is that prohibited, or you can use that in Iran?
It started with satellite dishes. They noticed that people are using it a lot. So every household had one of those, including ours. And then the government or the regime hired some people to break those dishes.
Break?
Yeah.
Not even block the channels, the
No.
waves, or whatever, just
They
break.
did that too, all of them. But at some point it wasn't enough, and they were like climbing up the houses, like going above to the roof where the
Bizarre.
dishes are, and then like throwing those dishes down onto the earth, or just taking this
Those heads, right?
yes,
That's
those heads, I don't know the name. They just
it's
took
insane.
it. Yeah, that is insane. And then sometimes they even resold those things to people again. So everything that the regime does comes with a way to make money for specific people who are helping the regime. But it started with those. They always failed because no matter how they tried, people are much more than their forces, and people still keep doing this, and they cannot like compensate. And then with the social media, they blocked and filtered Facebook in the beginning. So you had to use VPN to get access to Facebook. They basically block and filter every popular channel that you could use. With Telegram, this happened very early because Telegram is a very good platform to have channels with many people on one, so you can broadcast a news very easily. You can call people on to come on the street very easily. So Telegram was filtered very fast. Facebook was, and then recently also Instagram and many other
What
channels.
about
YouTube.
messengers? WhatsApp? What else? Gosh, what else? I imagine like Signal.
Signal is filtered. They cannot really, I don't know why they aren't. I think they aren't filtering WhatsApp because WhatsApp doesn't allow to have, to use really channels with so many people. I haven't seen that kind of community in WhatsApp. So it's more like one-to-one, and that is not a threat to them. But it's still, when they feel scared, they shut down the internet. Like,
Just
shut it down. Yes.
completely.
Yes, and that has happened, and that's
Wow.
like crazy. So 3 years ago, there was a big protest for after the government just raised or tripled the gas price in one night without announcing it, without any any pre-announcement. People were shocked. They came out on the streets and protested peacefully without any weapons or anything. And the government or the regime was really scared. So they shut down internet for 3 days, and they killed over 1,500 people in 3 days, like with military weapons, yes, all around Iran.
Seriously.
Yes. But yeah, I am shocked that you don't know, and so many other people don't know about it.
It is sad.
It is really...
I feel really bad,
Yeah.
but I don't actually know much about Iran. It's really sad, and I'm sorry. But
No problem.
But
It's
that's
not
why I
your fault.
invited you
It's
to,
not your
to get
fault.
to know
Yes, thank
more
you.
and to raise awareness. Because how is it? How is the attitude towards Russian? By the way, Russian people, Russian leaders in Iran.
Actually, before I jump into this, I wanted to add something about this conflict. That how much it is important, like how much is interconnected. The situation in Ukraine is really connected with the situation in Iran, and they have Russia in common as their enemy. I mean, with Iran, I mean people of Iran, not the regime of Iran. That is very important for me to say, because people of Iran see Russia as enemy. Putin is the enemy, and whoever is friend of the regime of Iran is an enemy, basically. Whoever supports them, whoever... Dictators find each other, support each other, they back each other's back, and they know that if one of them falls, they will be like weaker.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really hope that... We are really happy that Ukraine stood up against Russia and showed to the world how weak is Putin. Everyone thought that Russia is this giant and this master of military in the world. They are on top of the powers. They're one of the biggest powers, but they are actually not. The truth of Russia is just a bloated lie that Putin represents. Maybe a small group of very like crazy-headed people who think they are very strong, but it's just the ideology that they are hiding behind. And this ideology, whatever it is, which is like the big Soviet Union empire that belongs to us, I think this is their main goal, to grab all the territories that it belonged to Soviet Union once and take them back. They fight for it forever, and with this ideology, they don't care about people's lives. The same is happening in Iran. The ideology is to have this Islamic state, and they don't care about people. They just care about this ideology to spread the Islam and to spread, to have this like territory where Islam is ruling over all. And who is leading it? The supreme leader of Iran, of course. another Putin. I don't know which one is more ruthless.
Okay, so Iran now is in news everywhere. It's like the top of every, gosh, now German words come in my mind, in every newspaper and every channel. I would love to hear your perspective. I would also love to understand how Iranians see what's going on in Iran, not only what we see in media, you know. I want to get information firsthand.
Sure. Yeah, it started all with the death of Mahsa Amini. Everyone was furious about it. Everyone was like, why should a woman so young, so beautiful, die because somebody thought that her clothes are inappropriate or her hair is a little bit outside her scarf. And that is mind-blowing. I have had actually an experience with morality police, the police who is in charge of arresting women on the streets, where they think that they are not wearing the way that they should. So I got arrested while I was going back from my university to home. I was walking with my friend with a very short mantle. And of course, my hair was always, a lot of it was outside.
But you still had something like to cover, or?
Well, when you go to school or when you go to the university or official places, you have to wear a different kind of a scarf where it covers everything, and it's usually black, so you don't have any choices of color actually, mostly, and it looks awful, but still you could wear it from here. It's different from the scarf that you wear normally on a daily life. With the normal scarf, it's a little bit freer, but still, it's something that you have to wear in the public. So yeah, I got arrested, and that was really horrible experience. Everyone in Iran, in Tehran, knows how horrible these people are. They were...
Hang on a second, sorry.
Sure.
So you had a short, like, jacket or something like that, but what about the rest? Did you have like short skirt or jeans, or what was
You
the
cannot
problem?
show any skin in Iran. I had jeans on, I had like long sleeves, I had scarf on, and
But still, they thought that this is too short,
This is
even
too
though
short.
this was covered.
Yes.
But can you wear leggings and a skirt like that? That you can
no,
wear?
of course not. No, leggings are announced as illegal to wear.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So there are dress codes definitely everywhere. People, of course, in the more luxury parts of Tehran don't take it seriously, but still they might get arrested all the time. So you cannot get any job, you cannot go to school, you cannot do anything official, get a passport, get an ID card, get a driving license without wearing hijab. Yeah, that's crazy when you think about it. Still, yeah, the morality police, they don't have any, what is it called? Any instructions to this is right, this is wrong. They just go and pick whoever they want, whoever they think is fit or not.
So just
And that's
basically
it.
their judgment.
Yes, based on their own judgment. They did this, and they were very brutal. If you said, no, I don't want to come with you, they would beat you. They would beat you like with
Stick or
even
something.
shocker. Or I saw myself with my own eyes when I was in the van, in the car of the morality police. I saw that a woman was refusing to get into the car and was like shouting and yelling and asking people for help. And the guy took her head, took her from her hair, and hit her head in front of me on the window of the car.
That's hard to
They do,
imagine.
yes, they do these things. So when Mahsa Amini was killed, nobody even imagined that she died just because of herself. Everyone knew that they did something to her. They hit her because that is what they do, and we see it on the streets.
But how did your story ended with morality police?
I just went in, like I knew the drill. So many of my friends were already arrested before, so I knew the story. I didn't get scared, I didn't cry, I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this. I have things to do now. Now they're taking me away, taking a lot of my
Destroy
time.
my plans.
Yes, that's it. Like you're doing your normal life and somebody comes and takes you to prison. Something like
Out
that.
of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Like it gives you a lot of stress in your life, but I knew that they're gonna take me to this place. It's gonna be very unpleasant. They're gonna take some kind of note from you that you commit, that you don't do it ever again. You should show your ID. Later on, they would even do it with the cameras. So the cameras that are observing the cars, they could observe women who are driving, and if they weren't wearing hijab, the owner of that car was being charged for money, and they had to go to that morality place office to again do the same procedure. Actually, a really funny story from my friend, who is a guy, was that his car was under the name of his mother. And he was out with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend, of course, was not wearing hijab in the car. And they got an announcement that you have to come and you're charged with this amount of money, and you have to come and commit that you wouldn't do this ever again. And this announcement goes to his mom, who is an old woman who is wearing hijab. She's very religious, and she's old. Like she wouldn't ever take off her hijab because she believes in it. Really, like she's not. So she would go there with a full hijab and said, I am not, I would never do that. Why would you charge me for this? So this wouldn't just affect you as a person, it would affect your families. This would happen to so many people.
They had cameras inside the car.
No, cameras that observe the traffic.
Okay,
for
so
speed, for...
Okay, so they couldn't say like, okay, that was not you, but it was this person, and then somehow identify and...
It doesn't matter. The system works in a way that they cannot identify the person behind the wheel, really. They just read the car number, and they automatically send an SMS to the owner of the car.
That's a crazy story. So you said that the world now is more aware of what's going on in Iran and maybe generally in other countries, not only, in Westerns and whatever. So how do you feel about the support the Western countries or other countries provide? Is there anything else that you think can be done outside of Iran to change the situation, to help the situation there?
Definitely. I think there could be a lot more done in this situation. For now, I think it has been mostly Iranians outside Iran, expats, or even you might call them the forced exiled people. who might have never gone out of their country if the regime wasn't so brutal. These are the people who are going out on the streets, protesting or forcing these countries, politicians to take action over Iran. These are main activities that are happening that I see. I would like to see more people like Germans, Americans, Canadians themselves, people who are not Iranians, show up and raise their solidarity with Iranians, or people from Middle East in general, with Syrians, with Afghans, with all over the world. Because when Ukraine happened, I know that it's a different story. There were 100,000 people on the streets, and they weren't Ukrainians. Like, there were some Ukrainians already in Berlin, but they were mostly expats, Germans, or people who live in Berlin, people with other nationalities who cared about Ukraine. And that crowd, that vibe, really showed the world how Ukraine is important for them, for people who are living in Europe and all around the world. In London, in America, so many people came on the streets. But for Iran, for Afghanistan, after America went out of Afghanistan and Taliban took over the power, which was horrible, nobody really cared. It sounded like people just shut their eyes. Oh, this is Middle East. This is a problem that is never gonna be solved. This is not our war.
Let them deal with that themselves.
Exactly.
What about Afghani people here in Europe? Were they massively protesting like Iranians do now? Or is it just smaller amount of them? What do you think?
Yes, the population of Afghanistan is much less than Iran. Iran is about 80 million people live in Iran, and about, I don't know how many million people live outside Iran already. But Afghanistan has something around 20 million residents, and of course there are some refugees who got out of Afghanistan, and some Afghan people who live outside Afghanistan. But the proportion and the ratio between those countries' residents outside their countries is different. So Iranians are more, they can be heard and be seen more. But it was amazing for me to see how Afghan people, how Afghan friends of ours were beside Iranians. They came, they really raised their voice. I saw them on 22nd of October on the streets of Berlin, and while women in Kabul, in everywhere in Afghanistan, while the Hazara population is getting massacred by Taliban, they came and stood beside Iranians, because we are kind of in the same situation, and they understand this. They know that we should support each other. I loved it, but I expected more out of like other nationalities to come and show their solidarity with us.
So the protest here in Berlin that happen, I believe, every week on the weekend, is it mostly Iranians or some other nationalities join?
Mostly Iranians, for what I can see. There are, of course, some other nationalities as well, but as long as they have a relationship with Iranians. For example, my friend from Kazakhstan came with me to support me when I went on the 22nd. I posted on many different social medias, even on Neben An, which is a very small platform for the in Germany for just the neighborhood community.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, this is amazing actually. One neighbor answered that he will join. So yeah, still I didn't see that kind of huge support, the huge amount of, like, you look at the population on the street and the biggest one was 80,000, something like that. Only Iranians, like mostly Iranians on 22nd of October, they came from all over Europe and all over the world to Berlin to show how many people we are, and that was a really big change. But after that, Iranians in every city in the world, they do it only in a small group in their own hometown. And of course, this is not the crowd that would take really big attention to themselves.
But what do you think? In which way those protests help, apart from raising awareness that people know more? Is it somehow related to Iranian current regime to be more afraid that, oh, now the whole world knows, the whole world supports? Or in which way do you think those protests help?
In many ways. First of all, with every protest, with every rally that we go, there are cameras. There will be a news about that protest that is broadcasted from different channels, and this raises awareness. So I do an action here. I post on Twitter, very small action, but it might hit somebody's timeline. It might trigger a small candle in the, like, darkness of the night. And that's what we are trying to do, basically. We are trying to fight with this great power, great evil power, with so much military power, gun power, who is standing in front of people, who is killing brutally, with their jails and prisons and tortures and media, that they have all the power over the national media of Iran. We really need to go out there, shout out our voice, and stop those who support Iran's regime outside the borders. It's very important, because Iran's regime has hands outside Iran territory. They pay money to some people to support and change the narrative of what's happening in Iran in the favor of the regime.
It's in many ways like Russia, pretty much the same.
Definitely. Dictators all have the same tactics. They learn from each other. So those have been recognized lately with the late revolution by aware people of Iran, like outside Iran. They have been spotted, many of them. One of the most famous ones is called NIAC, N-I-A-C. It's an organization that is giving American official politician, the White House, I think, they're giving advices to them about Iran and Iran's internal affair. So American politicians, they don't really know what's going on in Iran, and they cannot interpret it prettily, because they don't know the culture. It's an unknown world for them. They need someone from Iran who can interpret the news of Iran to tell them this means this, that means that. And they use these organizations like NAYAK, who are getting their narrative from Iran's regime. And we want to really change that narrative, because that is not the narrative of what is really happening to the people of Iran. There has been good work on that. And now I see so many individuals rising up, especially women, like teachers, scholars, scientists, female scientists who live outside Iran, to go and speak up in the news. That is something never would happen before. There were always these guys, these politicians, who were invited to these TV shows or to news shows to give their idea about how the world looks like. Yeah. But now I am very proud to see how women of Iran are really heroic, kind of. Inside Iran, first of all, definitely they are fighting. They're really going on the street, which is
risking their lives, basically.
Yes, you don't know if they are coming back or not. You don't know. And outside Iran as well, everyone is like really caring, really upset, really angry and furious, and they are turning this anger and frustration into positive action, which is very good. It's still risky because so many of us, our families live in Iran, and we don't want to harm them. They could be harmed. But still, we cannot stay silent anymore.
How about the percentage of people in Iran that support the current regime? Like, what if they kill all of those females? What are they gonna do? And I'm wondering, like, how many of actually, I guess not only generally people, but how many females support what's going on? Are they okay with that? And how many of them are?
That's the thing, actually. We are saying, let's have a referendum to see how many people are supporting the regime, right?
Really?
Why not? Why not? They are not accepting it. Why? Because they know that the supporters of regime are really, really small amounts of the population. You cannot even
say... It's a minority.
It's a minority. You can see it in the so-called elections, which are just formality elections. Even in those formality elections that are governed and by the regime, so you don't have any real candidate in them. They're just the regime candidates. You don't have a choice, basically.
Yeah, in so many ways, like Russia, it's insane.
Exactly. So you can see that they don't really have any supporters. People go and vote, and they vote to empty, or just they write a wrong name, or they just mark a cross. And
voting for no and no candidate is good enough.
Exactly, because they have to vote, because you get this stamp in your ID card for voting, and in some governmental institutions they check it. If you haven't voted, you don't get this job. So they
seriously?
Yes, and then people go and vote and put a cross in there, and those crosses and those votes who are not eligible, the amount of them were the second candidate. Like, the first candidate had this amount of votes, second candidate was the invalid candidate. And everyone knows that the first candidate got a false number. This is a man-made number.
The majority of those ballots, they were basically like invalid because they were either, I don't know, like just not destroyed, but people just draw something on it or just said that we vote for no one. It's insane. But
Yes.
I think in Russia they don't even do that. They also have those fake elections, but I don't think the thing is, in Russia, I believe you're not getting punished if you're not going to the elections. But I may be wrong because this information is pretty old from the times when I used to live in Crimea. And in Ukraine, also, no one would punish you if you don't go to vote. It's just your personal responsibility. So, yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's also not for everyone in Iran. They cannot monitor everyone, of course, but when you have to deal with the government, then they can check it and they can make trouble for you.
So, Masa Amini is like the person who made a sacrifice in order the world to hear about what's going on in Iran. And I'm pretty sure that there are other females that had similar stories. Maybe they had to die, maybe they didn't have, and that's why we never heard about that. It's sad that someone had to die, so the world became aware. But is there any other story that you can share?
Actually, Massa's name became the key of our revolution. There were so many other young women who died on the streets, like Nika Shakarami, like Sarina, that were big loss, big loss to us. And so many others that I cannot really name them. Each one of them were like an amazing individual being. You can see their YouTube videos. You can see what they thought, what they believed in, how they dressed, how they sang, how happy they were, how peaceful they were. With today's media, it's so easy to know those people who are dead now because of this regime. So young, so young. And there are some who are still alive and they have protested, like one of the stories, like Elnaz Hijabi, who was a climber, and she went outside Iran to South Korea to attend as a national team's like member in a climbing session or contest. She took off her hijab and did the sport because they are forced to wear this hijab while they do these sports, and they compete in the worldwide competitions, having this barrier that makes them less efficient as their peers, and they don't choose this, but the regime is trying to show that no, these females that we send outside Iran with our national team, they choose to wear hijab, but that's not true. They are being forced, and if they take off their hijab, they cannot, most probably, they cannot be free when they go back to Iran, which is what happened to Elnaz as well. She came back, she went back to Iran, but she was kept away from her family because her news, the news of she taking off her hijab broke over the world, and everyone knows about her, so they couldn't hurt her really, they couldn't imprison her, but they imprisoned her in a house away from her family, away from internet, so she couldn't really send a message outside. They forced her on an interview that she had to say, I did mistake, it just fell, it wasn't my choice, on the national TV. And yes, some of these mullahs, some of these extremists were were saying that she should have been imprisoned, she should have been punished for what she did. Just the way that they say right now that people who are protesting peacefully, they should be executed. And they are saying it out loud in the media without being afraid of what effects might it have, what they say.
I wanted to go back a little bit, and you mentioned hijab being a barrier. And from what I understood, that's exactly what it means from Arabic. So, who knows what kind of barrier does it have to be? Can you give a little bit more of context here, like why Iranians choose to wear this kind of, I don't know, so the barrier has to be hijab. Why not the steel walls? Why not something else? Like, yeah, what's your perspective on that?
I think it comes, the hijab, the word itself, comes from Quran. Quran is a book that Muslims believe in hugely, but all around the world there are a billion Muslims living around the world. I don't think, except for Iran, in anywhere around the world, people are forced to wear hijab as in law. So with Islamic Republic, the revolution in 1980, 1979, they created this Islamic state where they can enforce the rules of Quran to people. But the way that they interpret these rules from Quran is just based on what they want. So they really abuse the words of Quran. This word hijab, for example, it could be interpreted in many ways. It means a barrier, but this barrier could be anything. It's a barrier between human being and their God, because we cannot see God, because we are not allowed to see God. That's what Quran says, and that's why there is this barrier between us. They bring this world and they interpret it the way that they want. They say that women should wear this hijab as a barrier so that their body is not seen by men, so that men couldn't be aroused sexually by the female's body. And that makes no sense except for suppressing female power, suppressing female to get into the society. And they know that female power is very strong and it can really bring them down. And there is this Iranian activist that I wanted to talk to you about. She's called Masih Alinejad. After she was exiled and she fled Iran, she was a journalist. She started a campaign against hijab, against compulsory hijab. And we are all not against hijab, we are against the compulsion, against this suppression. So it is very important. And she said recently, like a month ago or 2 months ago, she said that the hijab is like the Berlin Wall, like the barrier for this regime to fall. They have made this as the core of, like the regime has made hijab as something that they never accept or allow it to be freer than what they interpret of it. And if the hijab barrier falls, the regime will fall. That's what
it's like symbolic. Yeah,
yes,
it's pretty symbolic.
That's what Masih Alinejad said, and actually I think it's true. And the supreme leader also picked up on that. So yes, it's a very big thing. To suppress female power means that you suppress half of the society, and you also, with that, you suppress men as well, because what is a female if it's not a mother of a male, if it's not the wife of a male, if it's not the daughter of a male, right? We all live in the society together, so if you suppress half of the society, you basically have control over all. And that's why it is so important to realize that this regime is not really Islamic. They are not. They're just using this religion to stay in power.
And they just interpret it the way they want.
Exactly.
So if they want hijab, the barrier, to be steel walls, they would be like, yeah, steel walls it is. But how is it now in Iran? What is the situation with executions and all of that?
Right now, they have started to execute young people in prison, the people who they arrested in the previous protests, and this is making everyone furious. Really, it's really bad. After Iran's first revolution, the Islamic Revolution, this regime executed thousands of people in silence. Back then, 40 years ago, there was no internet, there was no social media to raise your voice and ask for help from outside. Thousands of people were killed by the president, current president of Iran, by the supreme leader of Iran and their committee, the committee that is renowned as the death committee. They would just kill people in row with a very short and very fast trial that had no meaning.
How do they kill people? They just shoot them dead, or
they hang? Mostly they hang people.
Seriously?
Yes, or
they don't even shoot.
Mostly they hang, but I've seen some pictures. A couple of pictures exist as evidence that they also shoot people in row, like old-fashioned. In previously. So thousands of people were killed and executed back then already in silence, and their families were suppressed and they didn't even know where the bodies are. There are thousands of stories about it that people have made podcasts in Farsi for it. They have written down. There's a breaking story about Hamid Nouri, who was one of the executors and who got arrested. That's a really interesting story as well. In Sweden, Stockholm, got persecuted and got in jail for 40 years, 30 years, something like that. That's basically life sentence. Yes, and now we are afraid that the same thing happens again if we stay silent. They could kill all of those who got arrested because the prisons are full. There is no room for more people, and more people still are coming on the streets, and they are still arresting people. And they want to free up space for new people, but they can't.
And with those, I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about this hangings. Like, is it just massive hangings in silence, or is it like public execution where people throw stones as well, or something like that, so they see that those people are punished?
Not anymore on the public, of course not, because if they do something like that, they trigger a revolution. People would go there and hang the person who is hanging.
Oh, so it's not that bad, because I thought maybe they are even supporting that and will...
No,
Good.
not at all.
I mean...
These people who are being executed recently, do you know what they're being persecuted for? For closing the road, for protesting peacefully. They haven't killed anybody. They haven't threatened anybody. And these trials that they have, they cannot have any lawyers. They don't have any lawyers. They just go stand there and they're charged with whatever they want.
Some just ridiculous excuse like,
Yes.
Oh, you blocked the street.
Yes. That's the first one. The first one that was executed on Thursday, which was very, very hard to digest that news for me and for everyone. Thursday morning at 8 a.m. they announced it, and we know that they wouldn't stop, and they announced the second one this morning at 8 a.m. So we wake up every morning and we read this news that they have executed another young and innocent person. And these people, there are so many footages out of them. They are nice people, they're amazing people. Now there are so many people in the death sentence row waiting for their verdict to be executed. Two of them are doctors who build schools for children, who do so many great stuff for the society. They could not ever harm anyone, and everyone knows about this. And they are being charged with, I don't know what, nobody knows what is their charge, what is their fault, and they are waiting for their execution. So it is very important for us to not allow the same thing that happened in the beginning 30 years ago happen again. We want to stop these executions. We want them to answer for their atrocities, and we want the world to understand and know about what is happening in Iran.
Thank you so much for coming over and sharing the stories. And I'm sorry that I made you a little bit emotional, but I can totally understand that topic is just too complicated to not be emotional.
I should thank you for the opportunity to give me a voice to be heard.
Yes. Yeah, that way we will raise awareness, and hopefully we will live in a better world one day.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.